One of the biggest challenges that scientists have is conveying certainty, uncertainty, confidence, all that good stuff accurately when they're doing media interviews. And I think it's particularly challenging because, again, in the scientific community, we're talking about uncertainty all the time. We're always trying to reduce uncertainty. For the public, uncertainty, it's just a broken frame to start with. Even just thinking about the word itself, right? Uncertainty, things we're not certain about. So the second you start talking about uncertainty, it can make it sound like you know a lot less than you actually do about how the world works or about research findings that are important in your field. So I tend to use the word confidence a bit more when I'm talking about certainty, or I just use the word certainty and talk about levels of certainty rather than focusing on uncertainty. It's also, a lot of times certainty, uncertainty, all this stuff, it's a statistical concept that can be really hard to get across. It can be pretty counterintuitive, right? Even something like p-values, how often are journalists even able to take the time to delve into that and explain that to their audiences, right? They're often using a lot of shorthand to talk about this stuff too. So I think there's some fair phrases that we can use in science communication to discuss varying levels of certainty and different types of conclusions. If you have a finding that is perhaps interesting and worth talking about, worth communicating about publicly, but is tentative in some way, I think it's fair to say that maybe it's what we expect, but that it might not be conclusive, that this is more evidence, but that the jury is still out. A lot of times you can refer to research as, cutting edge or being part of a growing body of evidence. You can say that it's interesting and worth considering, but maybe not worth taking as gospel on a given issue, right? For something that enjoys a higher level of certainty, right? If you have other pieces of research that are coming in and pointing in the same direction, that's when you can say, there's a growing body of evidence and it's growing stronger, that a consensus is merging around a given topic, that scientists are seeing the dots and that they're starting to connect them, that the picture is getting clearer, right? That we're starting to find more of the puzzle pieces and figure out how they fit together. These metaphors, these cliches, these phrases can all be good for explaining these sort of things. I think for higher confidence findings, you can use cliches there too. You can take it to the bank. It's a smoking gun if you're talking about some sort of causation, right? I think for really, big picture findings, comparing it to findings that we have in the outside world, outside of your field, rather, can be really useful, right? So it's as certain as the link between smoking and lung disease, for the really for the really, really basic stuff, it's like gravity or it's textbook science, or for new science that we now enjoy much greater certainty about, right? This is going into the textbooks, and that might be a good way of putting it. So consider all those phrases, consider where scientific findings fall on that spectrum of certainty and confidence, and explain that in a way that's going to make sense to a lot of audiences, right? Because if we focus a lot on uncertainty and on the statistics, I feel like that message is just very often lost on public audiences. So relying on some of these cliches, these metaphors, the other shorthand ways of talking about certainty and talking about confidence can be really effective for science communication, and it can be effective for journalism too.